his partner Sagidi. That's how I got my name. My first African name came from Sagidi. And so I was around that when I was young, little. And so right after that, Kwanzaa, and it just been part of my life, since then. But again, the first thing that always stayed in my head was I was like, wow, all this great food, all these beautiful women. And as a little child, when I gotta eat with my hand. So that was my first introduction to that cultural aspect of Kwanzaa coming up back there.
Okay, brother Agyei, Tyehimba, same question. How did you originally learn about Kwanzaa?
Peace, man. It's actually difficult for me to identify this exact time, but I know generally my father taught me knowledge itself in the home about Malcolm and nationalism and Pan-Africanism and African culture. So I'm pretty sure my father introduced me to the concept, but in terms of me actually seeing it being celebrated and being part of that probably would have been maybe around middle school or high school, because Harlem had an organization called First World Alliance, where you had Dr. Jeffries and Dr. James Smalls and Marimba Ani, who was then Donna Richards. A lot of the intellectuals and activists would come out and speak. And I know there was some place they had in Harlem, but I can't remember, that had this beautiful kind of setup of all of the Kwanzaa paraphernalia. There was Forces of Nature dance troupe was dancing. You had mad food. You had poetry and music. I can't remember exactly, but I definitely would probably just off the cuff attribute that to my father.
Okay, so Baba Hotep, your turn now. What was the first time you learned about the celebration of Kwanzaa?
I, like Baba Kwabena, I knew the name and the Malana Kringa and was familiar with the Nguzo Saba before I was acquainted to the notion of Kwanzaa. And like Baba Agyei, I can't really pinpoint exactly when I first learned about Kwanzaa, but I believe it was around 1970 as an undergraduate student in African American Studies at the University of Washington. It was, that's out in Seattle. As a member of the Black Student Union, there were students who were much more familiar with the concept and who made efforts to introduce the concept to Black students and to the campus of the University of Washington there in Seattle. And it's through my association, involvement with the BSU, that I became familiar with some of the rituals and involved, the Swahili terms involved in the celebration of Kwanzaa. The fact that it was a 7-day holiday beginning the 26th of December up to the 1st of January, put the context so that I begin to appreciate the fact that this was not just a one-day event, it was a week-long event, and gave the African-American community a chance to investigate, explore, and examine our African cultural identity and roots. So I say around 1970. And most of my experience with Kwanzaa has been here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I've had the opportunity to participate in numerous Kwanzaa programs over the 30 years that I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Does that?
Okay, so now a lot of people. Oh yeah, no, that works. That works just fine, brother. Okay, so a lot of people make an excuse to not celebrate Kwanzaa. A lot of people say, well, it's a made-up holiday. Brother Kwabena, I'm going to come to you first. How do you respond to that when people tell you that Kwanzaa is a made-up holiday, as if it has no value?
It's made up. I mean, I think all holidays are kind of like made up in a way. So it was created like I said, in '66, and you got some great information. I'm sure you'll be sharing a little bit with some digging deeper into that. But one thing that I do not have disdain for or disparage anyone who was part of the Black Panther Party that do not celebrate or recognize Kwanzaa as such, because of what took place with the US organization and the Black Panther Party, particularly in the Los Angeles area where I grew up, where again, my people were part of the Black Panther Party. And then, so I don't disparage him at all. And I have people from like Tim Hayes, SNCC, worked with Malcolm Martin, Black Panther Party, drove out to California from the East Coast with John Huggins. He goes in on Kwanzaa all the time. What can I say to him about that? Bunchy's niece was my good friend, Kim. Kim's gone now. What can I say to her when she has disdain for Kwanzaa? So no, and even some comrades like Ronald Freeman was at my house all the time, the Freeman brothers. You know, he was, I think, the first person shot in that conflict. He survived the shooting, but I can't say nothing to him about, or anybody, any of the Panthers, about not celebrating Kwanzaa. However, when I do speak with them, and even when I would talk to my uncle, Geronimo, he would say all this, even not just on this Kwanzaa piece, but on all of it, it's about principles over personality. And so the principles of Kwanzaa are what it is. It's powerful. It's what we need to be addressing and dealing with, not just these 7 days, as we all know, all the time. So, so when people disparage Kwanzaa, I check them sometime or find out why. But if you're a Panther or you're a Panther Cub, or if you're supporting that and you disparage it, I'm not going to be arguing with you at all.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the conflict between the Black Panther Party and the US organization. Can you unpack that a little bit for the people that might not know that story?
Well, it was us cultural nationalists, Black Panther Party revolutionary nationalists, and there was a conflict. There was a conflict in Los Angeles at UCLA with the Black Student Union and who was going to be major influences with the Black Student Union. Bunchy and John Huggins and my uncle was also, they were all students at UCLA at that time, taking some classes. But us wanted to have a piece there too. So, they met. If there's a picture of, if you look at a UEP Newton rally in 1968 at, I believe it was at the Sports Arena in Los Angeles, they're all sitting on the dais together. Karanga's on the dais with some other Panthers and revolutionary leaders. So they were trying to work together, but with some of these conflicts, and you had COINTELPRO get in there and do what they do with poison pen letters and pictures and all that to help further put fuel on this fire that was going on. And so there was a conflict. The conflict, from what I'm understanding, recently lasted about a year, but it resulted in, again, the deaths of Bunchy and John. And there was other things in play on what took place at UCLA on that day, January 17th, 1969, on the campus of UCLA. A lot more things in place. As a matter of fact, I heard a interview with Maulana Karenga probably about a year, maybe 2 years ago, where I finally heard him address it. So it was good to hear him address that. But there's been conflicting things about what took place that day. I talked to my uncle about it before he made transition. I talked to other Panthers about it. Matter of fact, one just happened to call me on the 26th, which is the same day we had our Kwanzaa here in Gary that we do every year, the Umoja Kwanzaa. And we talked about it at length. Brother Harold Taylor from San Francisco, original Black Panther back in the day with Bunchy and them back in '67, I think is when he joined. And so, and again, he also said, with all the stuff he said about Ron Karenga at the time, he said it's about principle over the personality. So he also recognized the righteousness of the principles, but he ain't celebrating because, again, it's just too close to him. And last piece, so I'm looking at my Facebook page when I'm promoting the Kwanzaa event that we're having and all that. And on my Facebook profile picture, I got Bunchy and Eldridge Cleaver, a picture of Bunchy Carter and Eldridge Cleaver. I'm like, wow, and I'm promoting Kwanzaa. So that's a kind of contradiction. So let me address it. I'm not taking Bunchy's picture down for sure. Him and Eldridge down. I'm not taking it down, but just because it's Kwanzaa season. So yeah, it's an interesting but very important history that we got to look at and examine, because we have these issues that come up from time to time. And how do we resolve them? How do we learn from the past, learn from our mistakes of the past and deal with all of this?
Yeah, so brother Agyei, same question. People might say that Kwanzaa is a made-up holiday, and they do that to try to kick dirt on it and try to, belittle it. How do you respond to that?
Well, I don't particularly care what white people say. So if they are white people, who cares? I am concerned when we have people in our own community who say that. Those are the people I care about, because what we say as a community has power amongst ourselves. And whenever I hear that, I say what Brother Kwabena said: all holidays were made up.
Right.
Number one. Number two, Black people have been Negroized, right? So white folk have taught us certain things, and many of us have internalized it. You got Negroes running around here wearing green on St. Patrick's Day, dyeing eggs for Easter, wearing red and ugly sweaters for Christmas. Stop playing. We celebrate all types of holidays. So why wouldn't we celebrate our own holiday that a Black man put there for us to reconnect us to Africa and to celebrate these beautiful, empowering values, particularly at a time when you got sisters on the TikTok and they shaking it out. 60 years old, 70, shaking it out. We got rap lyrics that's rape with rape lyrics right in the music, right? Sexual assault, misogyny, all throughout the airwaves. It's not an exception, it's the rule. Nonsense and foolishness is the rule in our music right now. Brother Kwabena knows. He's with that Clear the Airwaves project. He knows what I'm talking about. So for us to take that position is very backwards. And instead of beating our people up, we got to educate them. Educate them with love. Say, brother, I hear you, but half the stuff you wearing is from Europe. You bragging about this is imported from there. You got that bag and them boots and that. Hold on. You participate in the holiday of Black consumerism every day. Every day is Kwanzaa for the white man in the respect that he gets our money. So why would we not have a holiday where we support ourselves, right? We're not overly materialistic. It ain't about who bought what and how much. You could make something for Kwanzaa. You could make a card for Kwanzaa, right? You can make a song or a poem. So for me, that's reactionary politics. And if you hear any of us espousing such, then that means that they got that from the mastermind of propaganda, the white man.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's real talk. That's real talk. So, Baba Hotep, you've been around this for a long time. I'm sure you've heard a lot of pushback to Kwanzaa. What is your response when people say Kwanzaa is made up as if it has no value?
Well, first of all, I'm totally in agreement with the other members of the panel. All holidays are human creations, so all holidays are made up, or holy days, if you will, are made up. My experience has been that the majority of the Black folk who I encounter during the Kwanzaa season and outside of the Kwanzaa season don't disparage the concept. They have no idea what it is. They've never heard of it. They haven't heard anything about it to disparage it. I think they draw a blank when you mention Kwanzaa. When I ask, do you celebrate Kwanzaa? No idea. And I think that speaks to our need to update the marketing dramatically. If we think it's a concept that's of value to our community, we have to find new creative ways to promote it. And particularly to our young people. I know very few teenagers, middle school students, high school students, even college students who actively celebrate Kwanzaa. And this is in a city where there may be 4 or 5 Kwanzaa celebrations during the week, sponsored by different organizations. But it really hasn't seemed to penetrate the mass culture, the mass African American culture, where the average brother and sister on the block are familiar with concept and with Kwanzaa. So again, I haven't had people disparage it in my presence, but they simply don't know anything about it.
Now, is that a good thing that it's not become this commercial thing? Is that good or bad?
Well, if you're asking me, I can go first on this if you like.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think it's a mixed bag. Christmas is heavily commercialized. All of our people are familiar with Christmas. We all may not celebrate it, but most of us have grown up in this culture and have been exposed to Christmas and its pageantry, its imagery, the music, which is very, very powerful, those Christmas songs, Christmas carols. So it's in the mainstream culture. I wish we had the same type of promotion, same type of exposure in our culture to Kwanzaa as that we have had to Christmas. And I think what makes that difficult is that the mass culture, the mass American mass media for decades have promoted Christmas. And those of us who believe that Kwanzaa has some potential for elevation in our community have no control of any mass media where we can promote this concept to the masses of our people. So it's a mixed bag, is my opinion.
Okay, now, Brother Agyei, same question. Do you think it's a good thing that Kwanzaa has not gone too commercial and it's kind of remained underground, so to speak? Brother Agyei, I think. Oh, I'm sorry. I think you're on mute. You're on mute, brother. Wait a minute.
I think it depends on what we mean when we say commercial, right? So when I say that Kwanzaa is not commercialized, I don't mean to say it's not promoted. It should be promoted. I'm saying that it's all about money and who got what and who got more and who, that type of thing, right? But if we're talking about promotion, it absolutely needs promotion. But if we're honest, to be fair to Kwanzaa, Christmas has been around since thousands of years, right? I think 2nd century, right? So we also have to understand that Christmas comes from a large religious piece that's been here for centuries, right? Kwanzaa is what, 1966? So yeah, of course, Christmas is going to outdo Kwanzaa. Also, Christmas is part of the mainstream culture. Kwanzaa comes out the most beautiful movement in history, in my opinion, the Black Power and Black Arts movement. So naturally, these are movements that go against America. So yeah, it would make sense that this holiday would not be as popularly known or recognized. But what Baba said concerning better marketing, also getting our musicians, I think that sometimes we forget the lesson of the Black Power movement is that it wouldn't have been what it was without the Black Arts movement. So we need to desperately go in these communities and get our teens and our 20-somethings that's spitting them fiery bars. We need to politicize them, and they need to be on the front line of kicking the type of rhetoric that's political and culturally connected that would help spread Kwanzaa. They're the best, I think, position to do that. And that's why, we had a broadcast, Harlem Liberation School, last week. Team RBG has a mixtape out called RBG Gumbo. And they got RBG hip hop artists from all over the country in a 3-part mixtape. That's the type of stuff, speaking of what Baba said, to do better marketing and promotion, that would help with that. And if I could say this too, one of the things that's difficult is if you're the conscious brother or sister, but you're coming up in a situation where your family may not be quite there with that. So let's say they've been celebrating Christmas for 100 years or whatever, and here you coming back from college or from the rally or wherever you coming from with your kente cloth and your ankh and your African medallion, and you change your name up like me. I speak from experience, and people are like, Agyei, man, you Quentin. What do you mean, Agyei? Right? And you having that sort of ideological battle, and people are like, they don't know about it, and you're trying to educate them. That's difficult, right? So we have to think of how do we create tools to help people like us. It seems like y'all all relate to that same story, right? So how do we create tools that help us to educate those in the family who never heard of Kwanzaa, or they have heard some of the negative propaganda? So yes, what Baba said about marketing is very important. I would agree with that.
Okay, so now there are 7 principles that Kwanzaa is based on, and that's really the prime focus of the holiday. Baba Hotep, I want you to lead off with this.
Can I get a little bit of that though before you do that? Because
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, because I just wanted I went and got this CD real quick that I had talking about marketing. This is Kwame Steve Cobb and Sister Shaban Duka about Kwanzaa. It's the 7 principles, and so it's an excellent CD, great music, and again that they put in that good work out here, and cultural revolutionary culture, all African People's Revolutionary Party, just great music for the people. And there was that song by X Clan where they did the Nguzu Saba. I can't think of the name of the song, but Brother Jay came forth when he just ran down all 7 principles. But dang, I can't think of the name of that song. But bro, I need that mixtape.
I think it's ADAM.
ADAM. Yes.
Yes.
And brother, I need that mixtape, man, so I can share some of that on the weekly wrap up. And we played on Friday, and this is all connected, but we played on Friday again, Marcus Mosiah Garvey by Samsung and Finstro, brother with Chiralo on there, because again, they're talking about partnering. Hopefully they'll do it today. Finally partnering Marcus Garvey. You know, we know it's deserved. We don't need him to do it in a way, but that would be great. It needs to be done. So we played that. So that music, bro, that music is so very important. And our people are making the music. It's just like you said, it's not getting pushed out there. But I just wanted to mention African people, European holidays by Shakamoso Barashengo. Got to check out that book because it breaks down not just this holiday, but all of them pretty much, and talks good about Kwanzaa, and his brother James Anyiki's book, African American Holidays too. So I just wanted to mention that. But yeah, that was it. Just wanted to share that.
Yeah. So to add on to what you just said, Ishaka Musa Barashango, his book is in 2 parts, part 1 and part 2. African People and European Holidays and Mental Genocide. That's recommended reading in my humble determination. So I like that you said that. I'm glad you said that. I would steer people in that same direction. Now, Baba
and FACT and fact.
Oh, fact, absolutely. I definitely check for that. Okay, so Baba Hotep, we're going to come to you now to break down the philosophical meaning of the principles of the Nguzo Saba. I'm gonna let you take that.
Well, that's a big task there, bro.
Yeah, well, you could skim it.
Well, as everyone knows, we're talking about 7 foundational principles, and these principles are goals or objectives. But my concern is that the steps to reach Umoja, or Kujuchakalia, or Kuumba are works in progress. How do we actualize Umoja? How do we know it when we see it? That's the aspect of the Nguzo Saba and Kwanzaa that we have yet to fill in the blanks, if you will. The principles are wonderful, but how do you breathe life into these principles so that they become a daily practice among the masses of our people? I think the major task of the Black nationalist Pan-African community, and we're looking at maybe 5%, 2% of the African American population we can put into that community, the Pan-African nationalist community here in the U.S. I think it's their task is to operationalize the Nguzo Saba if we expect it to be adopted by the masses of our people. It has to be moved from being a goal or an objective with concrete steps for actual operationalization. I think one of the concepts, particularly I think at Ujamaa, I think we could operationalize Ujamaa, which is cooperative economics to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit together from them. That collective building of an African American economy, I think, could be jump-started by a concept that I helped to develop called the Johari Sida, which is Swahili for the 6 jewels. See, the six Johari as the jewels. The six jewels of black sovereignty, black independence, in my opinion, are taking control of our basic survival needs, our food production, our clothing production, shelter construction, of course, the education, healthcare, medical care, and self-defense would be our basic survival needs. And this is universal, I think, for all human communities. What's very clear to me is the fact that we do not control food production for the 40 to 45 million African Americans in this country. We cannot feed ourselves. If the white man decides not to deliver food to our community in times of crisis when food is short, well, then we starve. Because we do not have and our children starve and suffer because we have not put in place the infrastructure that allows us to connect with the Southern farmers, the black farmers, and to market that food, to package and distribute that food within our community. Likewise with clothing. As we know, the majority of the clothing production on the planet is controlled by the Chinese. They make our clothing. We do not have the facilities in place to provide shoes, pants, suits for the masses of our people. Another big deficit. And we can continue on with shelter. Most brothers do not know how to build a 2-bedroom house, a 1-bedroom house. We can't provide shelter for our people. We don't have those skills. We don't have the will. Myself, for example, I have 4 college degrees, but none of them are really practical when it comes to providing for our basic survival needs. I haven't been trained in food production. Few of us have. Most of us are not proficient in clothing production. We haven't been trained in that, shelter, education, healthcare, etc. So I'm thinking that one way to operationalize the Ujamaa concept, cooperative economics, is to step into food production, clothing production, shelter construction, and that way demonstrate to our people that we do have the capacity to make money, to create an economy off what we produce, if we take control of that and put it into an infrastructure. Now, and I don't want to go on and on because I want the other panelists to have an opportunity to share, certainly. So I'm finished with that.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to come to the Johari Sita, and I think in order for us to act upon the Johari Sita, we also have to manifest the concept of Ujamaa, which is collective work. I think that's the solution for us as a race, collective work. I think nothing else happens for us until we can manifest that concept of collective work. Now, Brother Agyei, I'm going to come to you next. The importance of the Nguzo Saba. What is your thoughts on it?
What Dr. Karenga and the US organization were doing was right in line with the type of nationalists they were. They're cultural nationalists, right? So the cultural nationalists say that one of the key areas where we're attacked, one of the key weapons used against us, and one of the key weapons we must develop on our own behalf is the weapon, the shield of culture, right? A lot of times they were ridiculed because some people said, "Oh, all you guys do is wear dashikis and fancy and take Swahili names." And no, I don't think people appreciate it. Culture is the totality of your being, right? So you have black people who come straight from continental Africa, but they're European with respect to their religious practices, with respect to how they dress, with respect to how they look at relationships, with respect to all of that. That's cultural. And so the culture is your views, your values, your priorities. What are you willing to live for? What are you prepared to die for? What will you kill for? That's your culture. When he delineates these 7 principles, he's giving us a really comprehensive cultural weaponry, arsenal, so to speak. if people were to follow those things, if they were to internalize them, make them part of their parenting, part of their teaching, their chores, their community responsibility, their essays they write, the things you do when you get together at family get-togethers, instead of saying, let me see you dance, you might say, hey, break down Umoja for me, Johnny. You see, things like that, the things that you big up, right? So they very wisely understood that we move based on culture. That if you want to get the people, the politics is important. But if you want people to be better people, you want people to think the best of each other, not to be shortchanging each other, backbiting each other, talk behind each other's back, and you got to build up their culture. That's a cultural, some might say spiritual piece, right? So if you look at the Nguzu Saba, all of that is kind of encoded in there. And I would probably say, Brother Rollo, that we have to find ways, and I think the educators, the griots, the poets would take a lead in that, in disseminating this without being so obvious. Like, for instance, what if when I was coming up in Harlem, there was a talent show every Friday and Saturday in one of the projects. You paid $1 we got to hear Slick Rick, Dougie Fresh, all of the big acts. We was off the streets, people, and sometimes you got to go up and spit on the mic, right? That's Kuumba, right? That's a form of Kuumba. Nobody's saying Kuumba, but they're practicing it. So I think we need to find ways to get particularly young people who are less jaded, less bogged down by bills and family obligations, to get them excited about the principles. And we don't always have to say it up front. I think we should teach them, we should demonstrate it, operationalize it, and then let them know when you did those talent shows, when you created that, when you joined that entrepreneurship piece where you had to come up with your own business idea and get it funded, and you had to do this and this, that was cooperative economics. That was Kuumba. That was self-determination. You see? So that, because that way they feel it and they do it first, and now they can make the connection with the name. I think what's happening now is there's a lot of the name, and I think it speaks to what Baba said, it's not as much, people is not connecting as much with people. So if you can run up the names, just like the 5% can run off the supreme alphabet, supreme mathematics, that don't mean that they're operationalizing it, right? So I think that's part of it, and last thing, I think the easiest way to do a lot of this is to look at what are the different aspects of a nation. Look at the people that's already experts in that. See, I think that we spend way too much time reinventing wheels, the center trying to be the point guard trying to be the power forward. Look, we got people in the community that have been doing schools, African-centered schools for 30, 40 years. We have people that have been doing radical revolutionary scholarship for more than 30, 40 years. And all of these different military, self-defense, firearms training, everything you can think about, agriculture. We have people doing this right now. I think personally, we should have a conference. We should identify these elements of nationhood. We should attract and recruit the people who are experts in these things, not 300 people, maybe 25 people, and have those people start chopping it up and start coming up with curriculums and ways that we can teach and internalize these things, because they already have the blueprints. I think that's just an easier way to kind of do it, because otherwise, with no disrespect, you have community members that don't know a damn thing about agriculture that's chiming in on the agricultural discussion. It's like, we need the people who know. I don't know a damn thing about agriculture. I'll say that straight up. But I would love to hear what somebody who does that for a living and has studied it and has been successful at it has to say. I think we need to put those people together along with our activists and everyone else and start coming up with the things that require expertise. We need expertise, and I think we need to start looking at it that way, so we're not constantly coming to the same question every 25 years, so that we have something that's growing. Like take G2 Weusi, right? This is an elder that cultural nationalist that put together the East. He put something there, an institution, right, so that people can get fed from that. And I think if we build institutions, create maybe holidays, but find ways to get people who know what they're doing in each respective field to give us blueprints and start building something in those areas would save time. I spoke to Baba Daruba bin Wahad about a month ago, and I said, Baba Daruba, what do you think about how things are developing? And he said, brother, things ain't looking good for the home team. For us. You see? And so people are getting a sense like, and Trump coming in, things are getting worse. So we have to start thinking about how can we do all the work that has to be done efficiently, saving time, saving resources, getting it started. You know, that those are some of my concerns around the issue. I hope I addressed what you asked me.
Oh, most definitely. Brother Kwabena, we're gonna come to you. The importance of the principles of Nguzo Saba. We would like you to add on to that if you could.
Yeah, Umoja. I know I heard Raul Nefra Men speak on it in Metu Netir when he talked about how our coming together, our unity is so important, and that we don't have to agree on everything, but that which we do agree on, let's come together around that. I think that was always equate that with Umoja. And I'm going to say something about the last one, also faith. And, you know, our struggle is righteous. It's a righteous struggle. So we got to have faith that we're going to win. But it also requires us to put in that work. Like Brother Hotep was saying, he gave practical things that we not doing that we need to do, but we are doing them in some instances. And like Brother Agyei said, let's get those who are doing it and work with them. That's why we've been working with the Nubian Leadership Circle Summit for a couple of years. And we got like 8 cadres dealing with land and food, arts and culture, spiritual essence, international affairs, family essence, health and education, economic development. And I think the last one was technology. So dealing with all that. And I think about Malik Yakini and what he did this year needs to be celebrated in Detroit, because there is and not just him, of course, but he was like the leadership around it, putting that co-op. And we took the trip from Gary out there and went and checked it out. I mean, it's a co-op. And we have them tentatively scheduled to come here to Gary, where we're recognizing the 100th anniversary of the birth of Brother Malcolm. You know, in a couple of days, it'd be, that year, 1925, and we had some giants born in 1925. But Brother Malcolm, May 19, 1925, and so we've been having a lecture series, and we're trying to get Brother Malik to come here to Gary, which is a city that so desperately needs this sort of co-op that he pushed in Detroit, and the land and food type of thing that he's doing right there with the food, which ties into bringing food from the South and other areas and what have you. But the practical stuff, like you said, that we need, when we think about Kwanzaa and the 7 days, December 26th to January 1st, all this these principles are so important. They need to go beyond that. And I got to shout out my brother recent ancestor, Kwesi Ron Harris. This brother toiled and put together Kwanzaa cycles. He broke down the other 358 days left out of the year and divided them by 7 and put in the different cycles, the Umoja cycle, the Kuji Chagulia cycle, and it has directions on how we deal with those cycles. And that's out there, it's still out there. We got to get that get it documented and put it out there. That's some work that we have to do, because again, it's so important, and that work he did should not go in vain. So I wanted to mention that. Also, when we talk about education, I was thinking about Marcus Garvey School in Los Angeles and Freedom Home Academy, Brother Marcus Klein, the great work he's doing in Chicago. I mean, he shares it with educating these Watoto, and it's so important. When we did our Kwanzaa ceremony, and I want to talk about, I know you mentioned Brother Daruba and how it was looking bleak, and we listened to this great talk show out of Chicago, Brother Salim Mullah Wakil from New Jersey, but former Panther, former SNCC, Nation of Islam, well, not SNCC, but Nation of Islam, but he was talking about what's happening in Palestine, and he talks about that a lot. He keeps that up, but this, again, it's a tragedy that genocide is taking place. And even going back to arts, but this is off a little bit, but it's all connected. Because I asked the question, what are the songs that are dealing with that? I mean, I know there were songs from back in the day, Brother Hotep, Stop the War, even Bob Dylan was making songs about Vietnam War, so many other ones.
That's
But
right.
where are the songs? Where are the artists making songs about that genocide that's currently taking place? I mean, I haven't heard anything. Somebody said maybe Post Malone did something, but why is that? But what Brother Salim also talked about some of the things that are happening in Africa right now, some of the things happening in Sudan and some other areas where there's conflict. We had a brother from the Earth Center speak on Kuji Chagalia at our Kwanzaa, and he talked about what was going on in the Sahel. And that is so very important. And I just heard, I think it was yesterday, maybe it was yesterday, that now Senegal is talking about joining Burkina Faso and Niger and Mali and Chad and getting them French out of there and the US out of there. And that is something that is happening that we should be optimistic about. That's self-determination. That's controlling our own resources on an international aspect. So, I mean, all these principles are all connected. And we're, like you brothers were saying, we got to talk about them. We got to get them into our youth. And we got to also talk about, again, the practical aspects of what we're not doing right now, like the building of our homes and all that, bro. That was so important. And living in a city like Gary, Indiana, this is a chocolate city. This is a city still where all of our city council are of African descent. So all of on our school board, they're all Africans. But the conditions here are just so dire.
Yeah, now you mentioned Brother Miliki Akini. He's doing such great work. We heard about him here in New York. That is the Detroit Food Sovereignty Network. So if I could steer people in the direction, I would ask them to go ahead and search that. And you mentioned the Marcus Garvey School in LA. I would direct people in that direction as well if they want more information on that. Now we have Wizard Shabazz in the chat. Says we have been praying and having faith for 600 years, and nothing has significantly changed for our people. Why? I say my response to that is because we're not practicing our own culture. And Kwanzaa puts us in a position to begin to practice African culture, African ways of being, African self-sufficiency. Africa is the birthplace of agriculture and, this idea of doing for self. So my answer to Wizard Shabazz on why nothing has changed, although we've been praying for 600 years, is the fact that we have not been practicing our own culture. And so, Baba Hotep, I'm going to come to you first. How would you respond to someone that says, why have we been praying for this long and nothing has changed for us as a race?
Well, I think it's the nature of white supremacy, the white supremacy system, to work night and day on every level to keep Black people miseducated, divided, powerless, and programs like the CONTEL program would be example of the scheming that they do and how effective they are at it, of dismantling all efforts in the Black community to unite, to pool resources, to educate our children. We're continually under attack from generation to generation to generation. We also have to factor in the systematic assassination and discrediting of our progressive leadership. That's a major tactic. They understand very clearly if you want to stop a movement, you kill the leadership, you co-opt the leadership. Could you imagine where we would be if both Martin and Malcolm lived? They were working toward, eventually they would have worked together. But our adversaries are very adept. They are masters of colonizing people, human populations, and exploiting populations. They're so sophisticated, they have most of us being complicit in our own exploitation and oppression. We actively participate in our own destruction. That's how sophisticated they are, and most of us don't even know it. So we're at war and have been for generations. Since our ancestors were drug off those slave ships, it's been war. Now, it's not always the kind of war where you're shooting bullets and you're taking lives, no, but it's a psychological war, it's an emotional war, it's a spiritual war that we are engaged in, and most of us don't know it. Most of our people don't know that we are at war and have been at war. And unless we develop the kind of consciousness that will allow us to do the historical analysis and share that information and then act on it, if we are at war, then there are certain steps that we should be taking in our community to defend ourselves and to advance our interests. Enough said, bro.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you mentioned this idea of war, because in the 72 Concepts to Liberate the African Mind, you talked about acts of resistance against the war. Would practicing Kwanzaa be an act of resistance against the war?
It could be. It's a stepping stone, I think, to understanding that we have adversaries in high places, and again, who are dedicated to blocking our rise, the restoration of our greatness, the returning to our traditional greatness, who do not want to see that, and who have deliberately and systematically put in place measures to curtail that. So, it's something I think that we really need to face honestly and openly. But at the same time, you don't want to tell your adversaries what you're doing, that you peep their game. We don't need to do that. So I really don't want to talk too much about this in this kind of form, because I think it makes us targets.
Got it.
Yeah.
Understood. So now, and I shouldn't address this because I try to keep it on the positive. I focus on solutions. Baba Hotep, I learned the expression solutionary from you. So we have someone in the chat that says that Kwanzaa was created by a sellout snitch. Y'all tripping. I'm going to respond first. I'm going to respond first by saying that the dominant narrative as it relates to the origin of Kwanzaa is not accurate. And I wish Baba Agyei was on, because he could chime in on this. I interviewed him for my book. But if I can give the thumbnail sketch, the Nguzo Saba, first of all, was something that was, I don't want to say stumbled upon, but Dr. Arthur Graham, who was head of the Black Student Council at California State University in San Diego back in the 1960s, he was in touch with the great Amy Jacques Garvey, who was the wife of the Right Honorable Marcus Garvey. And there were not a lot of books available at the time on Marcus Garvey and his teachings and so forth and so on. So Queen Mother Amy Jacques Garvey was thoughtful enough to send him some papers of some things that Garvey had written. In them was a pamphlet called Aims and Objectives for Movement of Negro People. It's kind of a convoluted title. If you search it now on the internet, if you search Aims and Objectives of Marcus Garvey, you'll be able to find it. Either way, Dr. Arthur Graham read the Aims and Objectives of Marcus Garvey, and from that, he extracted what he considered to be 7 key concepts: unity, self-determination, collective work, group economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. He gave that list to Joe Vincent. Joe Vincent was a student and a member of the Black Student Council in California State University in San Diego at the time. Dr. Arthur Graham gave the list to Joe Vincent. Joe Vincent knew Dr. Karenga. Dr. Karenga already knew and spoke fluent Swahili. So Dr. Graham said to Joe Vincent, look, give this to Dr. Karenga, have him translate this into Swahili so we can have an African value system for African people to follow and go by. And so he did that. And so Maulana Karenga translated it from the English into Kiswahili, which is how we got the Nguzo Saba. He himself takes credit for creating the Nguzo Saba. That's not necessarily true. And I'm not here today to kick dirt on his name. I'm just trying to put the history in perspective. Not only that, there was a meeting in the living room of Joe and Gloria Vincent to create a chapter of the US organization in 1965. At that meeting, Joe Vincent said to Dr. Karenga, why don't you put together something or create a holiday of some sort for Black people and Black people only, based on this African value system or this Nguzo Saba. And so Dr. Karenga, knowing a little bit about the history and the culture, he came back with some of the ideas that we know as Kwanzaa today. So the idea to begin Kwanzaa and start Kwanzaa and create Kwanzaa wasn't even Dr. Karenga's idea, though he gets credit for it. Seeing the history the way it's being told now, it will say Kwanzaa was created by Dr. Karenga and the US organization. And that's a little bit more accurate than just saying that Dr. Karenga himself created it. And so, Brother Agyei, I'm going to come to you on that. How would you respond to somebody that's being negative and trying to cast some negativity on Kwanzaa by attacking one individual?
one of the reasons that we struggle today is that we're not sometimes learning misjudgments and missteps from the past. We're talking about COINTELPRO. Every time I hear a workshop on COINTELPRO, it's like the boogeyman. Ooh, did you know they did this? And what we need more of is this is what they did, this is how they did it, this is why they did it, this is how we neutralize it, right? More logistical. One of the key tactics that the FBI used was something called snitch jacketing, which is when they would identify the baddest, roughest, toughest, most informed organizers and have one of their real informants and agents call this genuine, authentic organizer an agent or a snitch. Snitch jacketing. Once you got that snitch jacket on, community don't want nothing to do with you. So they take some of our best organizers and they neutralize them and sabotage their efforts. If we studied that, we would never get on any thread like this, with all due respect, and say anything like that. When you do that, you're replicating the behavior of our enemy used to destabilize us. In Harlem, where I grew up, we was taught if you don't know, you don't speak. Because people die. Let me be real clear. Die over running their mouth and don't know what they're talking about every day in these streets. Every day. First lesson you learn is if you don't know, you don't have paperwork, this person's name, their nickname, you don't speak on that. Right? And here's the other thing. Another thing we learn is that when the movements are going on in real time, guess what? Nobody knows who the agents are. Did you ever realize that when people were doing it, nobody knew that the dude that was the iconic civil rights photographer was an agent? Nobody knew. Because if they knew, they would have kicked him out. They wouldn't let him in their organizations. Nobody knows. That's what makes them effective agents. You don't know till 30, 40 years later when it comes out in proof. We have to get to a place you could have your suspicions. You could have what your uncle told you. But I would really guard us against saying or writing anything like that. It's just not, I don't think it's responsible. And if we're wrong, we're actually contributing to someone possibly getting hurt literally or hurt psychologically or in terms of their reputation. That's just my take. I just don't think that's a good way to go.
Man,
to do that.
If you can check out the movie Judas and the Black Messiah. I mean, it's based on what happened to Fred Hampton. There's a point in there where George Sams is pointed out. George Sams spread them lies about Alex Rackley, and Alex Rackley got killed, and how that disrupted so much of the Black Panther Party when that was happening. Check that out. Brother Hotep, you said they're dedicated to blocking our rise. And I just real quick, I know we're short on time, brother, but
no worries.
This whole piece on this music and what they're doing to us in this music. And we're about to get to the second quarter of the century in 3 days. 25 years is gone. And our music, and Brother Agyei, you touched on it earlier, for the past 25 years has been horrific, been encouraging us to take each other's life, disrespecting our women, dropping in bombs on us, and probably 90% of the songs that are pushed out there to the masses of our people, which is the most disgusting, despicable, dangerous word in the history of English and any other language, especially if you're an African. And it's self-hate. And that's what we suffer from. That's what we struggle with. So at the same time as we push this positive Kwanzaa, which we have out there, this righteous Kwanzaa, we got to spend some energy dealing with these beasts who are on a mass level, poisoning the minds of our children. Shout out Brother Simotap, Brother James McIntosh, and this whole piece dealing with this Good Times, Black Again reboot. That struggle continues. So keep the people, and we'll keep it, and we appreciate you, Brother Ralph, for keeping us being able to share with people about what's happening with that campaign. But we got a lot of work to do, bro, moving into the second quarter of this 21st century.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have some very informed viewers in the Fact family. Wizard Shabazz asks a question: who is Chief Alfred Sam, and why have you never heard of him? Chief Sam actually had a Back to Africa movement out of Alabama before Marcus Garvey. And so Brother Wizard Shabazz is right. Chief Sam is a name we need to talk about more because a lot of people don't know who Chief Sam is. So shout out to Wizard Shabazz for bringing that up. We got a lot of informed people out there. But Brothers, we are getting short on time. We're going to close out. I would like for everybody to give a closing word about why it's important to embrace the celebration of Kwanzaa. Baba Hotel, we're going to start with you.
Okay. Well, it's a vehicle. It's promoted as a celebration of family and culture, community, and I think any practice that allows us to take a look at our families, how we can strengthen them, how we can empower them, how we can enrich them from one generation to the next is worth having. Certainly, the community. A community is nothing more than a collection of families. And if the family is weak, that community is weak. So if anything that's going to allow us an opportunity or give us a reason to take a look at our communities and how we can empower them, enrich them, protect them, I think is worth having. And their culture would be the third dimension of what Karinga feels is important within the context of Kwanzaa. Once again, anything that's going to direct us to re-examine our culture, our history, and our traditions, both African and African American, and Pan-African, I think, is a worthwhile endeavor. So from those three perspectives, Kwanzaa has value. It should, once again, it's 1 week out of the year, out of 52, that we stop and reflect on these matters. But as others have indicated on the panel, it's something that we really need to do within our families on a daily basis. Use that Nguzo Saba as a point of reference, let alone in our community and certainly within the larger construct known as race, the African race. That's the short answer, bro.
Yeah, I like that. Appreciate that. Brother Agyei, I'm gonna let you rock next. What's the takeaway? Like how do you close out as it relates to the importance of Kwanzaa?
Well, it's an act of Black resistance against white supremacy. That's always important. It's resisting this idea that all of our holidays have to celebrate an important person, usually a man. It's also resisting the idea that we got to give all our money to our enemy every time we celebrate, which I love. That has to stop. It's considering it's also a beautiful receipt from the Black Power and Black Arts movement, man. It's saying that these are movements that left something real, rich, fertile soil that we could still, real things that are still here. Black studies departments, right? African-centered schools. These are things that come out of these movements. So it tells us that when we struggle and we fight back, that we can also build very important legacies that will outlast ourselves as individuals. That's important. And just one side note, one of my close friends, Dr. Scott Brown, wrote a book called Fighting for Us. He did a whole doctoral dissertation on the subject. And I think that if those who want more information about us, Kwanzaa, and Dr. Karenga in particular, exhaustive research, I think you'll find it very helpful. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, Brother Kwabena, we're going to come to you last. The importance of Kwanzaa, what's the takeaway for you?
I think it just gives us a time at the end of the year to reflect, celebrate our victories, and really deal with what we have to work on the next year and beyond. And I think, as my two comrades said earlier, and then knowing yourself, it teaches us about ourselves, who we are, our people, our culture. And we have an issue right now with lack of love of self. And once we know our history and know our culture, what we've gone through, what we've done, you can't help but love yourself. So I think it's so important that we recognize and deal with Kwanzaa.
Yeah, it's interesting you said love of self, because there's some people in the chat saying some negative things about some things. I'm not even going to expound on it. But either way, I would say this. Kwanzaa is the one thing that gives us the opportunity to unite and come together in one accord collectively throughout the year. Without Kwanzaa, we have no annual organized collective action outside of celebrating Kwanzaa. So for me, the takeaway would be the fact that Kwanzaa gives us an opportunity to reconnect with each other, not only culturally, but just reconnect with each other as people. And I think that's important for us as people of African heritage, because without Kwanzaa, we have nothing that unites us annually, or at least once a year. And I think that's the problem. The system sees it as a problem because it unites us. And the first principle of the Nguzo Saba, obviously, is Umoja, which is unity. And that's the one thing they don't want to see. And so there's always going to be an attack on Kwanzaa. And there's always going to be some of our own people practicing proxy racism. Baba Hotep, we had a conversation about proxy racism recently. And these proxy racists are basically working on the white side of the chessboard, as Dr. Welsing used to say. And so on that note, I want to actually, if I can, go out playing some, wait a minute, hold on. Playing some.
And as you get that, brother, just people remember it's the principles over the personality. It's the principles that are so important.
Sure. So now I'm going to see if I can share my screen. I would like to get some music in here at the end because we talked about the importance of music. Can you brothers see that on your screen?
No, I don't see it.
No.
All right. Can you hear?
As you get that, brother, can I get y'all the name of you all's books though? Because I know you guys are some prolific.
Okay, so go ahead, Baba Hotep. I'm gonna let you start with that. Go ahead.
I have a work my wife and I put together a few years back called 72 Concepts to Liberate the African Mind. And it's available. You just need to contact me. It's still in print, still being sold. You can contact me at 137
you froze up.
137.
You froze up, Doc. Say the number again.
You can contact me at 412-607-6039. That's area code 412-607-6039. And I can get you a copy of the book. Put it in the mail, in the postal mail for you.
Okay, brother
72
Agyei.
Concepts to Liberate the African Mind.
Yes, absolutely. And it is a jewel. It's a small volume, but trust me, it's very dense with information. This little book actually inspired me to write this bigger book. I mean, it's that full of information. And so I would definitely, if I could steer people in a direction, you definitely want to get a copy of 72 Concepts to Liberate the African Mind. Brother Agyei, I know you already have one. How can people reach out to you, Brother Agyei? I'll put the link for African Liberation School in the chat. If people want to follow up with you and get some of your books, these are some of the most recent ones here on leadership and Wukusu, which are exceptions. How do people reach out to you, Brother Agyei? Oh, I'm not hearing Brother Agyei.
You can hit me up on email if you want to get the book signed from me directly at truself143@gmail.com. So that's true self minus the E at the end of true. truself143@gmail.com. And if you want to get it from me directly, if not, if you want to go through Amazon, you can go to Amazon, just type my name in, and all the books will come up.
And Brother Kwabena, with Clear the Airways Project, if people want to follow up with you and get involved with the campaign to get disagreeable rap music off of the radio and off of the music videos, and get involved with the Netflix campaign against Netflix, how do they reach out to you in the Clear the Airways Project?
Clear Airwaves, that's with a V. clearairwaves@gmail.com. Also, we have our website at cleartheairwavesproject.org. And check out my comrade's book. He's part of our organization, Bernard Creamer's Who Stole the Soul, the Weaponization of Hip Hop.
Oh,
Who
wow.
Stole the Soul, the Weaponization of Hip Hop.
Yeah, definitely look for that. So on that note, brothers, I'm going to play this music. I'm still kind of in the chat, chatting with people in the chat. So I would encourage you to stay on and listen to the music and even get involved with the chat if you could see that on your end. So here's the music.
I've already got it. Yo, go and get the djembe drum, let's smack it in it. Sing a little something, something, maybe do a little dance. Remember the past and recommit to ideas within our culture. Grateful for any achievement, no matter massive or subtle. Remain humble, knowing just a simple setback or two could put us in a predicament without water or food. Therefore, we alter all our modes to reflect gratitude through 7 principles that bring us together, tighter than glue. Paying ancestors all respect due with a chalice full of libation that we pass to the next one to grab it. Got it. The house is decorated in a bunch of beautiful colors, adding a touch of authenticity to our sisters and brothers. We got 7 days to celebrate. Everyone will get a chance to celebrate it how they see fit. We all got plans. Happy Kwanzaa.
1966, among Pan-Africanists in Los Angeles, California. It came out of the Black Liberation, Black Power movement of the 1960s.
The first night, the black candle in the center is lit. Our candle holders called a canary. It's December 26th. We begin the week with emoji. The goal is unification across the board by community, race, family, and nation. The next night, we continue to light them from left to right, starting with the red candles. I'll explain, hold tight. This is a striking testament composed of aims and objectives, a code of conduct created not to focus on the mess, but to focus on the best that we do for the family. The red candles represent the struggle or the calamity that we went through and still do, but that didn't break us. A testament to that is smiles across all of our faces, and the plan is to hand it down so our children can tell their children, see, I told you, self-determination comes after emoja. Remember that, soldier, as you keep getting older.
Kwanzaa addresses the need for cultural connectedness, cultural thought, and cultural practice among people of African heritage.
Kwanzaa, happy Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa, happy Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa, happy Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa, happy Kwanzaa.
So emoja is unity. Next is Kuju Chagalia, which is self-determination. Be the best human being you can be and keep striving through work and responsibility. Which brings us to Ujima, providing a sense of dignity. Probably taught by your mama. Next is cooperative economics, also known as Ujuma, meaning having a stake in the outcome and growth of an enterprise. Day 5 is Nia. You have a purpose, so realize the cool Umba in you. That's creativity. This all requires faith, the money. Last but not least, this culminates with us having a big feast and giving each other presents that reflect what it means. Happy Kwanzaa.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa is a celebration of African traditions that lasts for the duration of 7 days. It is an African-centered holiday that celebrates family, community, and culture. It was not created to be a religious holiday. It was created to celebrate African traditions and reflect African culture only. Bon, I'm going to stop that right there. Are you brothers still with me?
Yep.
Yes, right on,
Okay.
man.
Okay, so I got one more, and I think like this a Kwanzaa music that people are not really up on. So I'm trying to like play this sort of stuff so I can expose people to this, because I feel like a lot of people are not really like, they don't really know the depth and the amount of actually really good Kwanzaa music that's out there.
Brother, that was powerful, man. That comes with the book, right?
That's from the soundtrack of the book. That's correct. Yes.
Does it come with the book?
The soundtrack does not come with the book. No, each is sold separately. But if I'm vending and I'm out, I might do it as a package for a lower price, just to give people a deal for that day. But
Okay.
the music definitely corresponds to the book.
Right on.
All right, so let me see if I can play it. All right, so I didn't share my screen properly that time. That was my fault. Just bear with me. After this, we're getting off, people. I appreciate your patience and both of y'all contributing. I think Baba Hotep got off. I want to salute him. I want to thank him for his participation. All right, so here we go. I got it now. Stay with me.
Okay. Got your shea butter? Check. All right. How about your dashiki?
You know it, bro.
And your hotep manual? Did you bring that?
You know what, King?
Oh, man.
This Kwanzaa, what you gon' do? Spending with my family, chill with the crew. We gon' share gifts, you don't have to spend loot. We celebrate culture, our African roots. This Kwanzaa, what you gon' do? Spending with my family, chill with the crew. We gon' share gifts, you don't have to spend loot. We celebrate culture, our African roots.
On December 26th, goodbye, Saint Nick. I light a black candle.
Yeah, I like it.
First day of Kwanzaa, Umoja means unity. Messing with my clique, melanated, check the drip.
Self-determination is the mantra. Constant elevation like the Haitians when they conquered their colonizers. Like a real-life Wakanda, true believers. Day 2, that's Kuji Chakulia.
Ujima, day 3, responsibility. Let's put in that work together, by the block, clean the streets. Collectively connected like the constellations. Plant a seed, watch it grow, reap what you
Spend your
sow.
black dollars on black business. Your black descendants, they hustle for your black children. A black trillion, that's how much black spending. Ujamaa, economics is how blacks will win, Lord willing.
On the 5th day of Kwanzaa with my family, Nia means purpose, build our legacy. Rest in peace, Rebecca Jones, matriarchy. Continue to work, Fannie Lou Hamer passed to me.
Hey, Kuwumba, yeah, you know what that means. Creativity, and you know what that brings? Full pockets, yeah, you know I like greens. I get paid every time I write things, and my inner light beams.
Day 7, all the candles lit on a Kanara. Imani means faith in a better tomorrow. Joy over sorrow, equity over equal. The kids are our future leaders. We believe in all our people.
But black women shape the human race. Meet your maker, Queen Mother, we appreciate. You are sacred. You are Harriet. You are Ella Baker. You're a maker. You're a manifester, a creator.
This Kwanzaa, what you gon' do? Spend with my family, chill with the crew. We gon' share gifts, you don't have to spend loot. We celebrate culture, our African roots. This Kwanzaa, what you gon' do? Spend with my family, chill with the crew. We gon' share gifts, you don't have to spend loot. We celebrate culture, our African roots.
All right, that's it, people. We're gonna close out on that. Hopefully, you like that little music, that Kwanzaa music that I injected in there. I think that's important, man, to have that music to convey that message. So, Brother Kwabena, I want to thank you for joining us on short notice. Brother Agyei, I want to thank you as always for joining us on short notice, man. Your brothers always come through for me. I appreciate that. Brother Agyei, we're gonna have you back on next week. So hopefully, I'm not putting you to too much work, but we get. You're on mute, brother. You're on mute, brother.
No rest for the righteous. I need more work.
Got it. Okay, so
right on. We need to hear him too. We need to hear him more. Right on.
Absolutely. And Brother Kwabena, just subsequent to that, we're gonna have you back on. So you're not off the hook either, all right?
Right on.
We gotta build, Brother Kwabena. We gotta get you back on the broadcast, brother.
We do.
You're doing amazing things, man. Love y'all, man. What you're doing for our people. That's real talk. Love y'all for that.
Right back at y'all, bro.
Shout out to everyone in the chat. Mama Brenda chimed in. V Note, the most once said, Harlem Liberation School. Is any number of people that are on here. Sheila S, Amin Ra, Eric Jackson. A lot of people had a lot positive to say. So happy Kwanzaa, Habari Gani. And we're gonna close out on that. But yeah, check us out. Fact Project next Monday at 10 a.m. We're gonna have Brother Agyei Tyehimba right back here to drop some more jewels. So thanks again, brothers. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk again soon. All right.
Peace and black power.
All right, peace. Tutal Nana. Kwaheri.